Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast with Phil Graham. We help you master Facebook ads and give you an unfair advantage over your competition. Are you ready? Let's go.
What's up, podcast family? Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast, episode 388. I'm Phil Graham. Today, I've got a great Facebook ad frequently asked questions episode for you guys. We've got some fun questions and insider tips for you. And it's going to be cool because my assistant picked 5 random questions from listeners of the podcast. And she tells me that 4 of them are related to Facebook and 1 is more personal. And what she did was she voiced them with the help of AI. So the questions are real and from listeners, but the voice is from AI. So it's more interesting to hear it versus me just reading it off. So it's kind of fun. And I have not seen or heard the questions. So when we hear it in this episode, we're going to be hearing it together for the first time, which means I can't plan my answers. It's a lot more fun that way. So this should be awesome. You guys, it's mid-October. I can't believe it. I hope you guys are leveraging ads not only now, but throughout the end of the year and well into next year, because it's definitely an amazing time to be running them. And if you guys are looking for any help, whether you want somebody to run your ads for you so you can focus on other things, or if you're looking to learn this, I highly recommend one-on-one consulting as the best way to learn. For either one of those things, you can go to my website, philgrahamdigital.com, or you can DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital, and let's connect. So let's jump right in and listen to question number 1. And again, these are real questions from real listeners, but the voice is AI just to make it a little more interesting. Here we go.
What's the number one mistake beginners make in Facebook ads?
Number one mistake beginners make. That is a tough one because there are so many. I literally do not think I can pick one and say that's the number one mistake because I could probably rattle off 20 number one mistakes, but I'm going to try. If I was on the spot and I had to pick one, I'm just going to give you a couple. I can't pick one. It's impossible. I'm sorry. These questions are already too hard. Turning ads off way too soon is definitely one of the most common big mistakes that not only beginners make, but even experienced advertisers make. You got to let ads run long enough to really know if they worked well or not. And so many people typically turn them off way too quickly. So I think that's definitely up there. It's one of the biggest mistakes I see. I would say another one is just horrible testing. You know, people are trying to test things, but they're doing it all wrong. There's like 10 different variables and they're not comparing apples to apples, and they're never going to get what they're really looking for if they're doing it in that way. So those are a couple. I'm sorry, I couldn't just pick one. There's probably 10 others, 20 others, but I'll stick with those for now. That was a really good question. I hope you guys are not making those mistakes. All right, let's jump to question number 2. I have no idea what it's going to be.
How can I lower my cost per click without sacrificing results?
Ooh, okay. Lowering cost per click without sacrificing results. All right. Well, there's no guarantees of this. You may or may not lower cost per click depending on a lot of things because there's a lot of variables. However, typically what I like to do when I'm trying to get a lower cost per click, a better cost per result is using better creatives, better images, better videos, things that capture attention more, and also better headlines and ad copy. I've found that in certain situations, when we have better ads that get more attention, they seem not only more relatable, but a lot of times in certain situations, people will engage with them more too. And that, again, does not always guarantee a cheaper cost per click, but sometimes it really works well. So better creatives is definitely one way to go about it. Better targeting is another way that I recommend. One thing that's really important too, when it comes to cost, it all varies and it all depends on what people do. Like, would you rather pay 25 cents for a click or $1 for a click? Well, you can't really answer that unless you know what they did after they clicked. If the dollar per click audience was generating a lot of sales and the 25 cent per click audience wasn't, then you would much rather pay $1. Right? So it does depend. But with all things being equal, obviously, if you can create more sales and get a lower cost per click, that's a great thing. So better targeting, not just targeting Advantage Plus, but using segmented targeting can sometimes make a big difference. I also like using video versus images, and there's not always one that's better than the other when it comes to cost per click. Sometimes a video will give us a lower cost per click, and other times it'll be an image or even a carousel. But testing those specifically can sometimes make a big difference. And then I would also say the ad objective can help. A lot of times I'm using the sales objective, of course, but sometimes I will try engagement. I'll try video views, and that can make a significant difference one way or the other, either up or down on cost per click. So those are some ways that I would work to try and lower cost per click. But again, there's a lot of other variables. So you just got to test and then use that data and then adapt. All right, let's jump into question number 3. What do we have next?
What's one hobby or passion people wouldn't expect you to have?
Ooh, so obviously this is the personal question. Hobby or passion? Oh my gosh, I have a lot. I would say probably the one people might not expect is mixed martial arts and boxing. I've done that for many years. I love training. I love boxing. I love mixed martial arts. I actually used to consult for certain UFC fighters, and that's what got me into it. And I really enjoy it, and I love that. So that's probably one main hobby that a lot of people may not realize that I love. I love the sport. I love training and everything about it. So that's probably the main one. All right, let's listen to number 4.
What's your go-to strategy for a new ad campaign?
These are all great questions, by the way, you guys. This is a loaded question because I could do a whole episode on this. I'm just going to briefly give a couple tips and strategies that I would be doing for a new campaign. So first of all, when I'm launching a new ad campaign, I'm looking for a few different things. And I know it's going to take some time to find them, but I want to find an audience that works really well. So I want to test different audiences to find a winning audience. I also want to find an ad that works really well. That means that I want to test a number of different ads. Just like if you were a coach looking for your star players, you want to have a bunch of players to choose from to find the really good ones. So that's part of my strategy. And then testing properly. So there's only one variable for each thing you're testing and letting things run long enough. And then within that, of course, like for audiences, I would test an Advantage Plus, which is a really large, broad audience, versus 1 or 2 or 3 specific segmented audiences. And then again, test different creatives, match those to your audiences, and then use that data to make smart decisions. Again, I'll do a whole episode on this at some point, but that gives you at least a starting process for my strategy for new ad campaigns in many situations. And yes, there are variables. It's not always the same. It does depend on different things, but in general, those are some of the things that I look to do for new campaigns. And last but not least, question number 5, let's hear it.
What's the best way to handle ad fatigue?
Ooh, best way to handle ad fatigue. Well, first of all, number 1, it doesn't necessarily mean it's all bad. I've had situations where somebody might consider it as ad fatigue because the frequency was high. However, the ad was still working really well. People were not annoyed. It was still creating a lot of sales. So you know what I did? I left it alone. Just because it said creative fatigue or other things like that, I looked at the data and I left it alone because it was still doing really good. But that being said, it's not like we always do that. We look at multiple data points and then decide what to do. So if you have an ad or different ads that have what you would consider ad fatigue, and maybe the frequency is high and people have seen it a lot, that's a great candidate for some change. So a couple things that I would recommend. You can obviously change the creative if you're keeping the audience the same, and then turn off the original creative and go with a new one. That will solve the problem for a while. Or you can change the audience and use that same creative, especially if it's proven. So those are things that we will certainly do. But another thing that I do that I really like is I will sometimes launch an awareness campaign using reach as one of the main optimization points. And what that allows you to do, it's so cool. You can set a frequency cap. And so you can essentially say, hey, I don't want to show this ad to people more than one time every 7 days or 2 days or 14 days. And you can determine the time frame on that. So when you use awareness and reach, you've got that frequency cap option in the ad set and the ad set level. And so that gives you a lot more control. So for example, let's say you've got a smaller audience, maybe even a retargeting audience. And because it's smaller, you're getting that ad fatigue quickly and the frequency is going way up. That's a great time to potentially use that reach, and you can cap it for how often they see it. And that's something that I highly recommend. So whether it's changing the audience, changing the creative, or using reach with awareness, or a combination of all of those things, those are some ways that we handle ad fatigue. So you guys, I hope that was fun. That was fun for me. I had no idea what the questions were, and I had to just think of the answers right off the cuff, which I think is always interesting and entertaining, hopefully, but also hopefully valuable as well, because you can kind of learn a little bit of not only what I'm teaching, but how I think. Episode 388 is in the books, my friends. Lots of great episodes coming up. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to get in touch, philgrahamdigital.com is the website, or DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital, and I will talk to you on next week's episode. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast. Please remember to subscribe and share this with all your friends. For show notes, more tips, and to learn more about Phil, please visit philgrahamdigital.com/podcast.